Hey, we're live. Back at it. I'm extremely tired. Somehow I don't look as tired as I feel. I'm really having a hard time keeping my eyes open. A pleasure and an honor to share the stage here with a good friend of mine, Barry. It's been a long time now. It feels like Barry. Some great memories together.
Yeah.
Sometimes one of the things I feel about it's really hard, actually, is that we are kind of far away. I mean, we've had some really good experiences at word camps and traveling, and it's not often that we get to see each other. I mean, this is great, but I would love to be able to see you and others that I've met more often. So very happy to do this, though. I think it was cool that we just thought, hey, there's an opportunity for us to talk at WordSesh. What can we talk about? And put together a topic, and I think we have something interesting to talk about, given our experience, some different experiences, some of the same, some of the same stuff we're doing right now, what's different. And I think it'll be interesting to not only the audience here, but something that we can share in the future. And hopefully someone and people can learn from it, and maybe we can even learn from it from hearing some input here as well. So I would like to get some questions rolling. Hopefully people are starting to wake up. Barry, why don't you just take a quick few seconds, minutes, just introducing yourself, and we'll take it from there.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. So I'm Barry Kooij. I'm from the Netherlands. So even though we are far apart, we're relatively close.
Yeah, of course.
From Norway to the Netherlands. I run a business called Never Five, and I got someone helping me with support, Harish. We do WordPress plugins, basically mainly at the moment, for premium like plugins with a ton of extensions and I've made What the File a long time ago, small little tool that a lot of people know and not know that I made. So that's always fun conversation. I've been doing a lot of WordPress for a lot of years now, and I love it.
Cool. And kind of, I guess where we're going to take this conversation is, the title of the talk is starting a WordPress business from home. And something that is newer to me than it is for you. But, we both are, have started a WordPress business, specifically from home, kind of by ourselves in a way. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot that we learned, a lot that, that's working, a lot that's not working. Personal experiences, I think that we do have kind of a similar experience or background in some ways, having done stuff like working at Woo Themes, even involvement with the WordPress community and organizing WordCamps. We are kind of similar, actually, even just outside of work, as it goes, and have just I don't know, we kind of but I think we agree and disagree on a lot of stuff. So I'm excited to start rolling with some questions and start to share experiences that we have, because I have a ton. This is really new to me, and I'm learning every day. It really helps to have someone like you to talk to. We should probably do it more. I've heard a lot of stuff today about this idea of like an accountability partner, or I love that idea. And I think that, that we should do it more and people should do it more because, like I said, there's a lot of people that would, are willing to share knowledge and share experiences and learn together. And while some people could view, we're not directly competitors, but, why would I share my knowledge with you? It goes to what we've learned and how we are and why we like this community. And it's amazing. So we should I wouldn't say take advantage of it, but we should leverage it and use it towards, I guess, mutual benefits for not just us, but for everyone else involved, right? So where do we start? So again, I guess we should keep this a little bit more around starting a WordPress business from home. I think we could just start from the beginning, I guess. So I'll ask you, Barry, then I can come back and talk for myself. So how did you start working from home? And if you could just cover some personal experiences,
definitely.
Some background for what we'll talk about.
So for a very long time, I've been a developer, writing code. And I used to always do this at a local development company. And about, 5 years ago, I guess, maybe around 5 years ago, started using WordPress. And I think like most people you start using the product without even knowing there's a community or anything around it. And I had a couple jobs since then. I've first worked at Yoast for a short time, which was not a remote job. And but around that time, I kind of started experiencing that a lot of people I know or that I follow, like online, were working from either home or some island somewhere in the middle of the ocean. And that is actually a real possibility, right? Something that 5 years ago, if you've told me that I would be working from home every day and actually making money, then I wouldn't believe you. So then I've actually met you and Mike and James from Woo at the same time in Norway. Started playing some video games and everything, started talking. And before I knew I was working at Woo Teams, I was working from home. I remember like the first day being really surreal, like getting up for work and actually not commuting. Now Never 5 has been a bit more than a year, like a year and a month old. And I mean, a year feels like a lot, and also it's only just a year. But I mean, every day still feels like kind of surreal. Like I have multiple days a week that I look at like myself in the mirror while I'm waking up and think like, lol, I'm just staying at home. It's pretty cool.
I think we have a lot to talk about that. I mean, we have some similar experiences and some different ones, right? So you kind of went full on into the idea of remote working, right? So you went from actually working somewhere and then to a company like Woo Teams where it is full on remote. And I kind of, I guess you could say, eased my way into it a little bit with Web Dev Studios, where I had the option to work from home quite a bit, but I would go in as well. You know, Brad and Brian and Chris at the time were all very close. And I feel like I mean, that was kind of my first job in this industry, right? Like I worked at restaurants, I've worked at UPS, I've done stuff where I had to go to work, but at least starting from Web Dev Studios, I had my experiences from working at home or, you know, at corporate offices or half remote, half at home, or now even at a co-working space or my own office or home, right? Like I feel like most of my decisions are on what works for me. And I think that's what it does come down to. And we'll get into that from in more detail. So we can talk a little bit about that now. I can just give a quick brief background on what I'm actually doing now. I haven't talked about it really at all. I've been on a bunch of presentations and I don't think anyone really knows what I'm doing these days. So I did start recently my own company as of January, fully on my own, something I call The Look and Feel. And together with two of my very good friends here in Norway, not specifically WordPress, but, you know, I know WordPress and that's what I'm going to use for a lot of the stuff that we do, right? I think it's the most amazing tool for a lot of things. Maybe not the best tool for everything, but I know it. I've invested a ton of time. I love the community and I'm going to use WordPress for stuff that we do. So started a company on my own about, I guess it's 8 months ago now. And I have we're a team size of 5 people. So all very new to me, kind of fast growth, and remote working is a challenge. Having done it in the past, you know, working for a remote company, but it is a total difference, not only starting your own company, but then starting a company from home, and what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. So we can go back and forth and talk a little bit, you know, about, you know, our individual situations and how they're working. And then I think maybe we can potentially just give some feedback and input on each other. So what do you think, Barry, what do you think? I gave an interesting talk on this actually at WordCamp Cape Town a few years ago on remote working and stuff and why it works. And we could talk a little bit about that. I have some good points that I can remember from the talk. So what do you think there are the advantages from working from home? What are great things, you know, what are great things working from home?
Well, I think the obvious thing is time. Like commuting, this is obviously different per country. And I know the Netherlands isn't the worst place because like the guy I'm working with at Never 5 is from India, and like the traffic there is even worse than it is in the Netherlands. But like the commute I had to do in previous jobs would take up hours of a day, right? And you would get home just being completely beat and not being able to work anymore or do anything other than you like. And now if I wake up at 8, I'll start working at 8:10, and then I quit work at 5 and I'll go for a run. And so I think one of the major advantages is that you can just, like, the time you would normally commute, you can spend on living a healthy life, which I think is very important. And then still have all the other time left to do things you enjoy or take care of your family, or all the other things. I don't know how you feel about that one.
No, I totally agree. So I can talk a little bit about, the talk that I did and some of the points that, I not necessarily I made up, but that, a lot of people made, from companies that I respect, and nice, interesting articles that I found around the topic. And right. So the point of when you say, working from home, that's kind of black and white, working from home or working at like what we know as an office, right? Like what everyone says that an office is. And I think when you say working from home, it's just the idea of differentiating the two, right? So there's two extremes. For me, and what I gave the talk on at Cape Town, was around just the idea of, and people say this, right, is you want to escape distractions, right? And distractions equal time, right? So for example, I wouldn't call driving to work a distraction, but it kind of falls into the same category.
Yeah.
It's a distraction from time that you would be putting in towards working, right? And you want to avoid all of these distractions, right? So I gave, in my talk, is actually after I had Oliver, my first child, and now we have two kids. I have a ton of distractions at home, like this place that's called home, and home is actually the worst place for me. Besides what I would call a typical office setup, where there's tons of distractions, maybe the drive, maybe meetings that you get pulled into that aren't necessary. Maybe it's just like, the old idea of, you just showing your face and maybe not even, like, some people measure work by you just showing up and not actually doing any work, but you just being around because they think you're at work, right? Like that's another distraction. So try to cut out all the distractions, and then I think the place kind of will be decided, right? So I don't think that, from this talk, that for you probably maybe home is great, right? But for me, home is a very bad place. So that's how we can talk about it a little bit later, but that's how I ended up getting my own office, right? But that's not an office in the sense that I have meetings there or I'm wasting time, I have distractions. This is actually a place that I call it an office, but it's just a place where there are no distractions, right? It's the size of like a bathroom. I can get in there. Nobody's there. There's no meetings. There's no phone calls, ringing. There's no, chores I have to do that I'm home. So I'm basically just trying to cut out distractions. And not all distractions are bad, but that's what you want to try to do. And I think that's an advantage of working from home for a lot of people. They can cut out distractions.
Yeah, I agree.
That's not talking about other stuff that's good. I think you have the opportunity to, like you said, go for a run, or somebody talked today about a lot of people bring dogs to the office, kind of lets you I forget who brought the dog to the office, but even if that's at home, right? Just realizing that life is, it's more than just sitting in a cubicle, for example, or you do have the work-life balance more when you work at home. And that could be a distraction, right? Maybe I'm saying you're trying to get rid of distractions and time that you're doing stuff, but that's also healthy, right? And that's a great thing.
I agree. Yeah, and for me, I think it's also important that where I live, the school that my son goes to is maybe 10 minutes from where I live. Yeah. So working from home, in this case home, or you have a co-working space, which is like 5 minutes from home. But like working around the people you care about means you can be there for them when they need you. Yeah. And when you have say 1 or 2 hour commute to work, and something happens to a person you care about, that means you are 2 hours separated from them. And that might seem extreme. And I know a lot of people have this and deal with it. Yeah. But I think it's important to be able to, like if my kid gets sick or something happens, I can be there in 10 minutes, like whatever, every day, which I think is important.
Yeah, totally. And it's hard. I mean, this is a hard topic because, I do truly believe that, the notion of that this is for everybody is a bad thing, right? So there are people that aren't like me and you, Barry, that aren't like maybe a lot of people that we know, where actually home is the worst thing, right? They are easily distracted where there are no distractions, right?
Yeah.
Distractions just start popping up. And I kind of have that as well. Like, I feel like I need to say mow the lawn because I care about the house so much for some reason. Maybe it's OCD. I don't know. I need to make the beds. I need to vacuum, right? Like home is a really terrifying place for me if I have to do, like, I have to get stuff done. But I love the idea of why, if we figure out why we actually like home, or why you say, why we gave this title of the talk, it's because, we're trying to get away from distractions. And for me and for you, I think they are a little bit different, but the idea is still the same. And we can talk about, like, again, you said, like, stuff like being close to the ones that you care about, like your family. I've solved that problem by making an office that's, literally across the street from your house and a co-working space that's, a 5-minute walk to home. So there are ways to compromise a little bit too. So,
yeah. And I mean, that being said, I think a lot of challenges come with it, right? So it's not all just sunshine, if that makes sense.
No. So what are some of the bad things, I guess, from working from home for you?
I wouldn't call them bad.
Challenges.
Challenges, yeah. Well, I mean, I think a lot of the things that people like expect to be hard, and a lot of things you don't see coming. Like um, a challenge is, and a lot of people, this is the first thing they always ask me is like, isn't it hard not being around people?
Oh,
Personally, I do not really like. I never really have the feeling like, oh man, I need to be around people. I really like being by myself. That being said, I do notice that my mental health like declines if I don't meet people on a regular basis. I've had, and this happened like in the last year. I've had, especially in the first couple of months, where things were really hectic. I didn't visit anyone for months, and I just noticed that I got more anxiety, and I got more scared of common situations just because you're so not used to seeing people anymore. Which is a challenge and something you really need to be careful for. And I think one of the challenges is actually working, and that sounds crazy, and it's not always due to not being motivated, but I think you can get lost in the freedom. Like you have so much freedom to work whenever you want that you can get lost into doing all these chores that don't actually contribute to this goal you've set for yourself.
oh.
You got no one monitoring you because it's your business. So
Basically bad habits can develop pretty easily.
Yeah, they can, because there's no one telling you that you're doing something that's actually not contributing to your goal.
Yeah, and for me, I guess even just starting a business, I think distractions are even more of an enemy, right? So, like for example, if you struggle, for me, like I did struggle with some stuff working remotely, especially after having kids and getting married and just not being, a single guy in New Jersey able to work these crazy hours. If you have just a job, right? Like, so say when I worked at WooThemes or Human Made, for example, like it was a little bit easier because I had, my responsibilities and the stuff that I did. But the business still, took care of itself, and I had other people, doing things that just kept moving, right? But when you start a business from home, not only do you have the distractions of, or just like you said, the you have to be very self-disciplined, and it is a challenge. So this is the stuff I wish was talked about a little bit more. It is talked about a lot, but it isn't all, like you said, all kind of positive stuff. It's a huge challenge to start a business from home, in the sense of not only is time money for you, but it's also the company you're trying to start, and these things kind of like just can exponentially grow and become a really big problem. So self-discipline is huge. I think this actually does come back to and like you said, being maybe alone, is that I would hope that there's these, there's good examples. So I think we have very good examples in the community in WordPress that we can look to that are doing this, and we're not alone. Mm-hmm. We're definitely not alone, right? So this isn't something that you're doing for the first time or I'm doing for the first time. So the kind of sharing of knowledge that we've been talking about and learning from mistakes and failing, and people have been there, right? So the pain, the distractions, there's ways to educate yourself to try to not to make those. So I think that's very important, is to kind of educate yourself on what is working, what's not working, talking to other people. Everyone's situation is a little bit different, but it's totally possible, and I think it's a great thing. It's kind of following best practices, making it the best for you. So let's I guess one of the points we have here is a different type of business and effect on working from home. So we could talk a little bit two things. So like the client side. So like I think I have I'm dealing with clients, especially even local clients, and working from home is a challenge for me. I have two kind of ongoing retainers with Norwegian companies. They're not remote working. Remote working is somewhat still of a new thing here in Norway. So I have a lot of challenges around, like, I guess when the idea of remote working is still new, trying to show that I am productive, for example. And that's not even just the work that I do. I think it's like this this veil, or I don't know what you want to call it, that since I just don't work in the office with the whole other company and I'm still involved, that it's not productive. And no matter how much output I put or how many hours or how you try to portray that, there needs to be some kind of understanding. And I'm struggling with that, actually, living in Norway in a small town and working remotely. It's going okay, right? But it's still something that, goes back to what you said, is that clients start to ask me to come in for the day, right?
Yeah.
And that day that I go in, I'm like 25%. It's like I'm doing 25% productivity of what I could be doing 100, maybe even 150, 200, right? Like, and just not productive. But at the end of the day, the client's happier because I came in. But for me, it's like I'm more of an input output kind of thing. I see what productivity is and just work, right? So you kind of give up something for the I don't know, for the other. So from the product side, it's probably it's probably a little bit easier in terms of it doesn't matter where you work, really. You don't have
it's easier in terms of I don't meet up with clients of customers like ever. So I've been doing like full products for over a year now. So no client service work or retainers or management or all that stuff, just building products and selling those WordPress plugins via web shops.
Mm.
And we only do support via email. So there's a lot of advantages, as in I can literally be wherever I want on the world, as long as I have an internet connection.
Mm.
And we kind of talked about this, like the bigger challenge of a product company, is that I think when you start your own business or run your own business, you always have the issue of not being able to track your own progress as accurate as you would in a normal job. Normally, you'll have a boss or a manager. You'll have these conversations every 6 months or every year about, hey, you're doing good, you're getting a raise, you're not doing good, you need to perform better in these issues. Like when you're running the business yourself, there's no one having these talks with you. If you're in client business, you'll have some of these talks with clients, right? They're going to be happy about your project and you'll have that feedback immediately. Like you deliver them a project, they'll immediately send you an email back like, this is great or this is hideous.
Right.
And in the product business, it's so much different. Like a lot of people think like you work towards a launch and you launch a product and that's it. Like then you sit back, open up champagne and see money rolling in. And my first launch was the most anti-climax thing I've ever experienced in my life. Like I've launched this product and like nothing happened. Like seriously nothing happened. Like the only person on Google Analytics was me refreshing the page to check if the website was actually working. So I mean, once you launch a product, then it starts, and it's dangerous because, I mean, not dangerous, but it's scary because you don't know if you're doing the right thing. You only know like after a year, looking back to the decisions you made a year ago and saying like, okay, that was a good decision or that was not a good decision. So there's a lot of guessing. Honestly, there's a lot of moments each day that I do not really know what I'm doing, and I'm just going with my gut feeling. Not in terms of development, but in terms of marketing and sales and setting up a strategy and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's quite hard.
And just back to the kind of what I'm doing with the client side, something that's been a huge benefit, I think, was even though I'm a remote company and somewhat distributed now with 5 employees, all kind of Italy, Denmark, Netherlands, someone in the States, someone here in Norway as well. It was important for me that if I'm going to target local and I'm going to target, say, specifically, Norway for now, try to do what they're used to in a way. Try not to be so different. And I say that because one thing that's very important to me, or what I thought was very important and means a lot, is, the ability to actually, I work in a co-working space, but I still have a company office, right? And one thing that you had a question here, Barry, was is an office good for this, for meeting with clients? And in a way, like meeting with them is great, but still somehow, having your own office and your own mailbox that's not your home address was pretty beneficial for me in the first couple of months trying to make relationships with local people, because
They take
and
you more
anything in life.
right?
Yeah, or also just the idea that, there's something physical or tangible about it, and people are like that. I mean, I often feel like, I don't know. There's something nice about that. There's something nice about going to work camp and seeing, hanging out with you physically. And there's something nice about that, and saying you own a company and having a physical place. So I think you lose that a little bit when you work at home. You don't really have an identity, and somehow we find identity in a physical place. And whether it's just because it's been that way for so long, having, again, the office that I have is insanely small, but I have an office, and everyone who works for the company knows that there's an office. And this isn't something I made. Human Made is a great example. They've had an office. They have an office. They have a home place. Wood Themes as well. When we were small, they had a small office in Cape Town, and they were a huge company, right? So I think that's pretty valuable. Not to say that everyone needs to work there, but you have a home base. And that doesn't, you make it to whatever you want it to be. For me, that was great because, I can put an address that I have an office. It's not my home address. Somehow it validates it for me with clients. Also, if there was to be a client that comes into town, I'm not taking them to my house. I can take them to a small room that has a small table, and we can talk and have a cup of coffee. And for me, that's working out pretty good. And I think you can, at least here in this small town, I can get a relatively very cheap place and call it, I guess, home base.
Yeah. Cool.
We could talk about some tools. I think this is always a good thing. There's always, so many people have different tools. I learned this from Brad as well. It's always like asking the right questions, figuring out what tools people use. For you working at home, and even just having, the one person help, doing support with you and helping you on extensions and stuff. What challenges do you have working remotely, I guess, with the team that you're building? And how do you leverage it? I think, again, what's great in WordPress is the sharing of knowledge. We kind of do replicate a lot of stuff that we know is working. So some stuff might not be new to people, but some stuff might be. So, what are you using?
So tools in terms of software and all. Yeah. So for support, we use Help Scout. I absolutely love Help Scout. For the client, for our customers, it feels like they're just emailing with us, and for us, it gets all tagged up and put in different mailboxes and really organized. Tools, Slack. I use Slack a lot.
Yeah. Do you find? I think Slack is pretty cool for small teams. I saw it be you see all these blog posts about it being like a huge distraction. I can see it being a huge distraction for large teams. People might disagree with me, but personally, I think that even now starting to get clients involved, I don't know, like you're not doing support through Slack, probably haven't,
No, absolutely not.
There's a nice way to do, live communication with, we've done this in the past with other companies I work for, but the notion that everything needs to be instant and we're just kind of keep validating that somehow. And I know it's like, you have to be disciplined. You need to have the right tools for the right, channel and stuff, but it does kind of get abused. Expectations between, again, this is easy when, this stuff is clear to both parties, but you have a place like where I live in Norway where I know that this stuff works, say, with the previous companies, but, right now it's not working because there's not, common, I guess, grounding on that, these tools or, there's proper channels for different things. So I have a hard time, starting a WordPress business from home in Norway, using what I know works and trying to educate, the community around here that I'm working with, that these are the ways to do things. That will come with time. But I'm having, quite a hard time with that, actually.
Yeah. I think the advantage for me is that the tools that I use are pretty much just me or me and Harish, which is in support. So, I love Trello. Trello is great for just putting, I use Trello a lot for ideas. So when clients suggest new features, I put them in Trello. And then when multiple people suggest the same feature, the card gets more votes. And then whenever I need to build something new, I look through the Trello board, see what is actually popular amongst the users. And I think a lot of the basic things like GitHub and I've been using like a to-do list sort of application lately. I've tried to, so like for the first 4 months, I was using a scheduling tool, which actually defined each day I had per hour on what to work on. And this just backfired so hard for me. As in, I would never make any day like for what I have planned, because a lot of days are quite dynamic. And then I had to reschedule, and I caught myself spending like 30 minutes each day rescheduling my own schedule. So that didn't really feel very productive. So I threw out the whole scheduling tool for myself, and now I have a to-do list. I use Todoist, which you got Wunderlist and all those.
I use Wunderlist, yeah.
And I just got a big to-do, and it's great, right? So you can sort them on priority, and you just do your to-dos.
Oh.
Saves a lot of time rescheduling everything.
I bet. There's so many things to talk about here. I was gonna go back to, I guess maybe potentially working from home and the challenges for hiring and scaling. I think it's a good topic. One of the things that I've learned from starting a business side of it, Barry, is that it's two sides of this. I kind of felt like I got the idea when I was working for a remote company, right? That everyone's got different distractions, different environments, different, you have to be very flexible, right? So from starting a business, you also have to be very flexible, not just understanding that, for example, when I worked for a company, we were all remote workers. I just understood that everyone's got different times. We've got tools to make it easier, blah, blah, blah. But from starting a business and say, being one person going to 2, going to 5, like it was very important for me to even apply that directly, because it was directly, that kind of could directly affect, business and profit and, just keeping this thing alive, is that you still have to you have to understand that everyone still works differently, right? Like not everyone has kids, not everyone, I don't know, wants to work all day, for example. Everyone is very different. So you have to be somewhat understanding, because you give everyone this flexibility. Like, I think that's what's nice about the office side of things, is that everyone's kind of got the same restrictions a little bit once they're in the office, right? Once they walk into the door, they're far away from home, for example, and they all have this kind of, I don't know what you want to call it, this box of, somewhat boundaries and expectations, because you're there, right? Like all distractions but when you're working from home or you're working remotely or you have a mix of the both, like everyone's got different things going on. You can't have these expectations. So you need to have flexibility, which is harder because you don't, like you said, it's self-discipline, it's understanding, it's flexibility, it's more work. It's actually kind of even more work in a way, where you can spend a lot of time around, time is money and distractions and stuff like that. So it's hard. I'm very back and forth on the idea from actually working from home. And it changes all the time. And I think that's good. Not everything is black and white. Things change. And I think it's always about trying to make the best of what's going on for you and the people that you're involved with working, and trying to make the best balance. Because I was very pro when I was like 18, 19, like working from home, no pants, like I can do whatever I want. I can travel the world. I can be a nomad, and that works for some people. And then you make decisions where you want to settle down.
Life changes.
Life changes, right? So I think it's very good to be like that, because I'm very skeptical of, these books or these articles that are putting everyone in this box that working from home is the best thing that you can do, right? And to sit back and think about it, like, is it the best thing for me? Is it the best thing for the people that I work with? So for now, yeah, I think that is a good takeaway from this, is do the best for your current situation. Think about things like distractions. Think about not just yourself, but what other people have going on. Learn probably from leaders in the community, especially in the WordPress community. There are a lot of people who have scaled this to a pretty large level. You start to see some issues when you start getting big. But we're not alone in this. Yeah, we can quickly go. There's a bunch of questions popping up, and maybe more.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
You can answer this one. So in terms of employing another person remotely, how do you monitor actual work time? Are there measuring tools, or is it simply based on trust? A project has a cost, but if the time spirals away, that can have a knock-on effect on the cost of the deliverables.
So, I guess this really depends on the type of company you have and is in the type of work you do.
Oh. For
me, a general rule is, because I've hired developers in the past as well to do certain things for me, and I have now someone part-time on support. I don't do any time tracking or monitoring tools or whatever. if I can't trust you, I do not want to work with you. And I think that's a good rule for a lot of things in life, because if I don't trust you, I don't want to meet with you besides work either. So I mean, I know there are tools, and but I think in the like high-end product business that I'm in, or if you're in high-end client business, that you just need to be able to trust the people you work with 100%. And if you can't trust them on the hours they claim they work, how can you trust them with potentially like tens of thousands of dollars worth of work that you're giving them, that they're going to deliver to the people that look up to your company and stuff like that? So, I mean, personally, I don't track it. I just trust the people.
No, I could say the exact same thing. And I think it is a choice on how you want to run your company. I'm not saying that there's a right and a wrong. There's the way that I want to do it, and the company that I want to build, and the culture around it I want to build. I learned a lot of this from working at Human Made. The stuff that they're doing, you know, again, they're learning from other people as well in the community. It's working for some people. Is the idea, like you said, is around trust. So I don't want to, you know, form a company, and I'm not even thinking about. It depends on what your goals are, right? So if your goals are to grow really fast and ignore stuff like, say, potentially trust. I mean, if you're saying that, tell me everything that you do, whether it's per half hour or for every hour, or, you know, every day that you work. If it's about trying to police someone in the work that they do, you don't trust them. So why would you want, you know, why would you want to set, like you said, why would you want to set that from the beginning? So you want to hire people that you trust. At least I want to hire people that I trust, that are in this together with me as a team. And you're going to reap so much from that. And I've seen it in the past, like that kind of relationship with the people that you work with from the instant, like from the beginning, the transparency, the openness. If they don't put in the time and it's low, like them just telling you about it rather than, you know, you having to count up all the hours that you've worked, or them having to lie about it, for example, like that's just not a situation you ever really want to be in from the beginning. So why not try to hire people that you trust? And, you know, it will go both ways. With that said, I think on the client side, at least for me, is there is stuff like cost of deliverables, right? And there is, you know, there you need to bill for something, right? And you don't want to necessarily then start lying about time to a client, right? So there's billable days, billable hours, and you need to meet those expectations. So how do you measure those? So in the past, again, I think it's a trust thing, that you should trust the people that you work with to honestly tell you how much they're putting in time into something, but you're not measuring that against the time that they're working. It's just something that you can deliver as, hey, the client needs to know how much time we put into something. And I've seen that work very well. Where it stops, you know, where it stops working, I think, Barry, is that the issue goes back to the, you know, the person actually isn't just trustworthy, right? So then there's a problem with who you've hired in the culture, and you need to deal with that. They're not a good fit for the team, right? And that just goes back to verifying the company that you want to start.
Yeah, and I think you need to be like honest with yourself, and like if you adopt this trust strategy or whatever you want to call it, that you're going to make a mistake sooner or later and hire someone that is going to take advantage of it. And just see, I think in the work we do, you'll find out anyway. Like if someone says they're working super hard and they're not delivering anything, like sooner or later you're going to find out they're not working as much as they say they're working, and then you just deal with it then. But I really think that most people are, I want to believe, and I still believe, that most people can be trusted.
Yeah, and again, too, like I guess maybe where you aren't trusted is it goes both ways. So like if I hire somebody and I say log every minute that you work, right, you instantly lose. Not only you're saying that you don't trust them, and then they're not going to do work maybe because there's not a good relationship from the beginning, right? There's no like that. Just the ability to say, hey, for me, and I've seen this in the past, and it works for me, is like, hey, I trust you with my company, right? You're basically saying that, right? That's a great thing to know. Like I want to be a part of this. I feel like I'm actually a team player. But where if you go to somebody, and in my past experience, I do feel this way, is that track every second that you're doing work because it's billable time. I'm just a grinder. I'm just grinding work. And I think it does go. What kind of company do you want to start? Some people want to start. I kind of maybe. Get you know, I don't want to say it in a bad way, but get a lot of money, grow fast, scale, get investors, do a thing, and maybe that's the fastest way they can do it because they can add all these numbers up. It makes all sense, and they're on their way. But I think for what you could call like a culture company and making the right hires and the trust thing, and if you want to do this for the long term and be happy and stuff like that, and it matters to your work-life balance, then you need to make the right, open, transparent, trust, right decisions from the beginning. So this is we could talk about this all day.
There were actually two small follow-ups on this. Pete, sorry if I mispronounced it, asked, how do you build trust with someone you've not physically met? Which I think is really hard.
Very hard.
You met everyone, right?
No, I haven't. I haven't met Rob, and I haven't met Jack.
Cool.
I
mean, obviously, it's a lot easier to hire someone you already know.
Way easier. Koon's a great example. There's a huge thing but I think that even like you said, there's things you can put in place, right? So how do you hire somebody that you don't know? You don't hire them right away. You don't offer somebody, a full-time job the day one, right? So
it's like a project, right?
Yeah, a project. Or I think, again, I learned this from how Human Made did a really good job about it, is that, a trial project, and the emphasis that a trial project isn't just between, you as a company hiring somebody. It's also as the person who wants to be hired, that it's a good fit for them, right? So there needs to be some kind of trial process, especially if you're working, where you've never met somebody, right? It's very hard, but you can gain trust, and I truly believe it, with talking through people. To people, seeing how they, talk to other, your clients, or seeing how they answer a support question. You can get a pretty good feeling for if somebody cares about, just communication skills, or, be nice to people, a team player. You can see all that very easily remote working, almost more than you could maybe talking to someone in the office, because you can see work that's getting done. You can see success stories. You can see, actual tangible things through the computer. I think so.
Yeah. And what for me really helped is that, because this is kind of digging into the next follow-up question, and then kind of going back, is there was a question, where if you found people you hire? For me, that was just an open vacancy. So I just put up a web page, and just people responded to it. And what for me really helped was that, just email or chatting with people is not really building a feeling. But then I hopped on in Appearance, and I kind of Google Hangouts with candidates, and that really did give me an instant feeling of someone talking to someone face to face, even though it's not in the same room. I mean, if there's a camera on and there's a microphone on, it feels like you're actually talking with someone. So that would be a tip from me. Actually, just hop on Skype and do an actual video call with someone.
And tips from there's a lot of conflicting data in the recent people that I brought onto the team that I absolutely love. And one of them that I don't know if I just got extremely lucky, but I had this notion that you need to look to say the WordPress community, right, or the meetups or the WordCamps to find the right person, because somehow that person is doing all the right things, right? There are a ton of people out there who are doing really cool stuff with WordPress that just haven't had the opportunity to meet somebody to fall into this, right? So it's probably easier to find, it's probably easier to find the right people inside this community in terms of making a good hire in the WordPress community. I think it's really hard to find somebody who's available. So you have a two-way struggle, right? So you can, go to the WordPress community, and it's really hard to find somebody because everyone's doing, cool stuff. They're happy where they are. Maybe they want to move, whatever. But the second you say, okay, let's ignore the WordPress community and try to find somebody who's a good fit, it's very hard, but they exist. So I found, Rob is a great example. Never been to a WordCamp, never been to a WordPress meetup. He's doing amazing stuff with WordPress, following code standards, doing everything right. He just never found somebody who said, hey, let's go to a WordCamp.
Just not aware of the community. No, yeah. I agree. I think a lot of people do a lot of cool stuff and just not aware of the whole idea of what is this community thing. I agree.
And I'm a great example of that. And you are too, Barry. I mean, we were all there. Everyone was there.
Everyone at one point did not realize what was a community, except for the person who started it.
But somehow, I think it's kind of an easy way to do it, and it excludes a lot of good people. And I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I think we should strive to best practices is, try to find the people that are doing the right thing. But I think that it's kind of a sad thing to say where not everyone has that opportunity, right? And there's a ton of people out there who are good. So there are people out there who exist. I think it's getting to know them, asking the right questions, seeing what they're doing maybe on GitHub. Maybe it's not on WordPress.org. Maybe it has nothing to do with WordPress.org or just a community, but they have stuff on GitHub that they're working the way that you want to work. They have remote working experience and they are fired up about WordPress, for example. They just never had the opportunity and they just haven't done it. So I've made that hire and it's a great guy and it goes against everything I kind of believe.
Yeah, you thought was right.
Well, there's a ton of questions. There's a ton of questions and good follow-ups.
Yeah, let's go and let's keep the answers shorter. Yeah. There's a lot of questions.
So do you think there's a shortage of developers? No.
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
I think this goes back to what I just said, though.
No, still there is. There's a shortage of developers in every field. I truly believe so.
I used to view it like I played a lot of music in a band, like finding a good drummer, right? They're usually all drummers are in a band that's very good and they're taken. I think there is something to say about that with developers.
I mean, look at if you are currently a developer and you are at least average in what you do, don't even have to like think that you're a great developer. If you're at least average what you do, you are familiar with the fact of recruiters calling you at least once a month or emailing you at least once a month with job offers, and you just know that if you lose your job, you'll have a new one in a week.
Wow.
This means there is a shortage of developers because there are not a lot of plumbers who can say the same thing, right? That can say like, oh, if I lose my job, I'll have a new one this week, and I'm getting called every month for a new job. Know what I mean? So there is definitely a shortage, I think, of developers. And with the demand of developers growing still, the shorter. So I think there's more developers coming in this space, but their demand just grows faster than the supply. So there will be an even bigger shortage of developers in 10 years. Because everything is going to get programmed, or everything is already programmed and developed.
I think there's a reactive and proactive approach here, because there's definitely like a enormous amount of opportunity for developers to get in, like to get in too. So I'm not saying like, I don't want to say there's a shortage of developers and there's no entry point and that they don't exist. I think that there's kind of two sides of this. I think that if you say there's a shortage of developers, we're just looking at what we think we have. And like I said, finding Rob, for example, and maybe that like we're looking in the wrong place. Maybe it's an education issue. Maybe we try to, be more inclusive. I don't know. I'm not too sold on that there's a shortage of developers. I think that, if we can very quickly think about it, like you said, that, any developer can go find a job. That means there's not a lot of developers, but that's totally true. But I thought that, and I've made 2 really good hires. Again, trusting in people. I think the second that even you lose trust, you're cutting down a lot of people, and there's a shortage then, right? So, and if you lose trust, and trust is a very hard thing to get back, again, another, narrowing down of what you think developers are. So I don't know how to solve the issue. I've had 2 good experiences, and I'm sure there will be bad experiences that will make me lose trust, and who I selectively hire will probably be harder.
Yep.
Next ones. What languages are most in demand?
I think that's a shifting thing.
Yeah.
I think if you just learn a good basic language, whatever that might be, I've actually started with kind of PHP, but then in school I got Java. Now everyone's shouting like, you need to learn JavaScript. JavaScript is going to be the next big thing. Right. And I agree. JavaScript is a great language, and I've been writing it for years. But in 5 years, it's going to be another language. And 5 years from that, it's going to be another language. If you understand the concept of programming, the concept of good architecture, good development, like what makes good software is not knowing the language particularly well, but knowing how to calculate about things that might happen in the future and thinking about architecture and data storage. If you know that in one language, you can just learn the next language and still be a great developer. I know plenty of companies that would hire people that are not able to. So say there's a company that's doing only JavaScript, and there's a person who has a track record of 10 years in PHP, being an awesome developer, and has never written JavaScript. They will hire him because he'll know how to switch to JavaScript.
Yeah. I think, do you agree that changing a language, though, right, is somehow attached to a community or a culture, right? So I don't know. I don't know what's in practice because I've been around WordPress, PHP, and all the languages that we're kind of stuck with, and there are new stuff happening. But for example, making a move from a language that I completely don't know, syntax could be the same. I do feel like there's some kind of culture attached to that, and it is a hard move. It is harder than just or even hiring someone from a different language trying to learn WordPress. There's some kind of culture involved in that, just like regular languages, right? So
yeah.
It could be as black as white, saying the syntax is different, but I do have a hard time with the kind of, I don't know what you would call it, but the cultures that build up around these languages because of the projects that use them, for example, and then all the offers you get with it. Yeah. Trying to learn WordPress development through self-training and online training, but it's a long road. It will be worth it. It will be worth it though. Great show. Thanks for discussing. Truest languages are just syntax.
I kind of agree, and you don't. So that's...
I don't.
I think that communities are one thing, and that's kind of how much you care about being a part of that community. Like I care about the WordPress community a lot, helping organizing the national WordCamp and meetups and doing all these things for the community. But I also write quite a lot of stuff in JavaScript, and I do absolutely zero for their community. And that's a choice I made. That's not because I hate them. It's because I have no interest being involved in a ton of communities. So I think you can just learn a new language, because I've done app development, like mobile native app development as well. And I wasn't involved in the Android or iOS community at all. So yeah.
Good stuff. A lot of good questions here. Thank you all for listening to us ramble. Hopefully, overall theme was just, again, starting a business. I think we answered a lot of tools, a lot of, challenges, a lot of advantages. And for us, Barry, we'll be honest with everyone, it's a learning experience for us. And, these kind of questions, seeing what you guys are doing, talking to you, Barry, it's been a huge help. So with that said, I would encourage that you guys, if you are starting a business around WordPress, working home, working in office, whatever co-working space, talk to people. I would love to talk to you guys. I wish we could do this more often. So talk to me.
Just hit us up, definitely.
Hit us up. That's what this is all about. And I think we'll wrap it up there, Barry. I think we can probably go scan through. I guess.
Yeah, I will stay around and answer some questions.
We have an exciting next speaker, Brian Krogsgaard. I like to play on it that we do have similar last names. Might be related, but he's not. I don't think he's Norwegian. But Brian Krogsgaard, a great guy, great friend, doing amazing things for the community. Amazing to see how post status has grown. Something I think I've seen come up already a few times in WordSesh. People asking what's a good Slack channel, what's a good resource or tool for a freelance or company work from home. This ties really good into what we're saying, Barry, is what's a good tool? Post status. What Brian Krogsgaard is doing and the community around that is where you want to be if you are a freelancer or you're starting a WordPress business or your large business. I think just the tools and the tips and the newsletters he sends out.
I like
podcasts.
A lot.
Podcasts are great. Definitely check out Post Status. Definitely stick around for this talk. Very excited to have Brian.
Can I add one more thing, Scott?
Yep.
One thing that I've felt, I want to close it with that, is that if you're starting a business or just started a business and you have the feeling that you don't know what you're doing, that feeling will probably stay forever. Because I still have no idea what I'm doing. So success is not tied to, there will be no moment in life that you think, now I figured this thing out.
And we see that everyone. I think the transparency and honesty here is great with that. So,
and I think everyone who's not admitting that is just lying. I honestly believe that. It's a lot of testing.
And on a great point, Barry. Thank you so much, dude. Hope we can hang out soon. I'll see you at WordCamp Netherlands. Until now, thanks for joining WordSesh. Pleasure to have you. Thank you, everyone, for watching us. And that's a wrap. See ya.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.